Lauren Hayes thought she'd finally escaped her nightmare until her employer, crime lord Adrian Moretti, discovered the scars she'd hidden for years. Now, the man who destroyed her is hunting again, and Adrian's obsession with her secrets might be the only thing keeping her alive. But in a world of blood and power, protection comes with a price she never agreed to pay. Will Lauren survive long enough to reclaim her life, or will her past bury her forever? If you want to see how this story unfolds, stay with me until the very end. And don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey has traveled. The Moretti estate sat like a fortress at the edge of the city, all iron gates and stone walls that kept the world at a careful distance. Inside, the house was quiet, in the way expensive places always were. Thick rugs swallowing footsteps, heavy curtains blocking out noise, everything designed to make you forget that life existed beyond those walls. Lauren Hayes had been invisible for 3 months now, and she intended to keep it that way. She moved through the marble hallway with practiced silence, her footsteps barely registering on the polished floor. The sleeves of her cardigan were pulled down past her wrists, covering her hands almost completely. It was June, too warm for layers, but Lauren wore them anyway. She always did. "Miss Lauren?" The voice was small and bright, cutting through the stillness like sunlight through fog. Lauren turned to see Luca Moretti barreling toward her, his dark curls bouncing, his face split into a gap-toothed grin that made her chest ache in a way she didn't want to examine too closely. "Hey, buddy." She crouched down as he reached her, letting him crash into her arms with the complete lack of self-preservation that 6-year-old boys seem to specialize in. "What are you doing up? It's way past bedtime." "I had a bad dream." His arms wrapped around her neck, warm and sticky with the remnant of whatever snack he'd convinced the kitchen staff to give him earlier. "About the dark." Lauren smoothed his hair back from his forehead, her touch gentle. "The dark can't hurt you, Luca. You know that." "I know." He pulled back to look at her, his eyes, the same steel gray as his father's, searching her face with unsettling intensity. Kids saw too much sometimes. "But it's still scary." "Yeah," Lauren said quietly. "It is." She stood, taking his hand. "Come on, I'll walk you back to bed and we can leave the hallway light on, okay? Can you read me a story? One story. And then sleep. For real this time." Luca's room was on the 3rd floor, tucked into the east wing where the family's private quarters stretched out in a maze of bedrooms and sitting rooms Lauren had never fully mapped. She'd learned early not to explore, not to ask questions, not to be anywhere she wasn't explicitly supposed to be. The Moretti household ran on unspoken rules, and the most important one was simple: mind your business and keep your head down. It had worked for her so far. She settled Luca into bed, pulling the covers up to his chin, and reached for the book on his nightstand, some adventure story about pirates and treasure that he'd made her read 17 times already. His eyes were already drooping by the time she finished the 2nd page, his breathing evening out into the soft rhythm of sleep. Lauren sat there for a moment longer, watching him. This was the only part of her job that felt real, the only part that didn't require her to hide. She was halfway to the door when she heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Heavy, measured, unmistakably male. Her pulse kicked up instinctively, that old familiar fear flooding her system before she could stop it. But then the footsteps passed by, continuing down the corridor, and she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Stupid. She was being stupid. No one here was going to hurt her. That part of her life was over. She slipped out of Luca's room and headed toward the back staircase that led down to the staff quarters. The estate had 2 sets of stairs, the grand marble one in the front entrance, and this narrow service stairwell that smelled like lemon polish and old wood. Lauren preferred it. Less chance of running into anyone. But tonight, the universe had other plans. She rounded the corner at the 2nd floor landing and nearly collided with a solid wall of muscle and expensive cologne. "Sorry." The word died in her throat as she looked up. Adrian Moretti stood in front of her, all 6 feet 3 inches of him, dressed in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up and dark slacks that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. His tie was gone, his collar unbuttoned, and there was a tension in his jaw that suggested the day hadn't gone the way he wanted. He was, objectively speaking, a beautiful man. Dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled but would be devastating when it did. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, cold and assessing and utterly unreadable. Lauren had worked very hard not to be alone with him for the past 3 months. Miss Hayes. His voice was low, controlled, with just a hint of the Italian accent his father had passed down. Working late? Luca had a nightmare. She kept her gaze somewhere around his shoulder, her hands clasped in front of her. I was just putting him back to bed. That was it. Just a sound, neither approval nor disapproval, giving away absolutely nothing. Adrian Moretti had perfected the art of saying everything while revealing nothing, and it made Lauren's skin crawl in a way she couldn't explain. She waited for him to move, to step aside so she could pass. The stairwell wasn't wide enough for both of them. He didn't move. You've been with us for 3 months now, he said instead, his eyes still on her face. How are you finding it? It's fine. Luca is a wonderful. That's not what I asked. Lauren's fingers tightened around each other, the fabric of her sleeves bunching under her grip. I like it here. Everyone has been very kind. Kind. He repeated the word like he was tasting it, testing its weight. That's not a word I hear often in reference to this household. She didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Silence had always been her best defense. Adrian's gaze dropped briefly to her hands, still twisted together in front of her, then back to her face. You're afraid of me. It wasn't a question. Lauren's heart hammered against her ribs. No, sir. You're lying. I'm not. Everyone is afraid of me, Miss Hayes. It's not an insult. His head tilted slightly, studying her. But your fear is different. More personal. Why? Because men like you are dangerous, she thought. Because I've learned what happens when you trust someone with power. Because the way you look at me makes me feel like you can see straight through all the carefully constructed walls I've built, and I can't afford to let anyone that close. Out loud, she said, I'm not afraid of you, Mr. Moretti. I'm just tired. If you'll excuse me. She tried to move past him, keeping her eyes down, but he shifted slightly and suddenly his hand was on her arm, not grabbing, not restraining, just touching, his fingers light against the fabric of her cardigan, and then his thumb brushed against something, a ridge, a raised line of tissue that even the thick sweater couldn't quite hide. And everything stopped. Lauren jerked her arm back so fast she stumbled, her shoulder hitting the wall behind her. Adrian's eyes had gone sharp, predatory, locked onto the place where his hand had been. What was that? His voice was very quiet now, very controlled. Nothing. Show me your arm. No. The word came out harder than she intended, edged with panic. It's nothing. I need to go. She pushed past him this time, not caring about propriety or protocol, just needing to get away before he could ask more questions. She took the stairs 2 at a time, her breath coming too fast, her vision blurring at the edges. Behind her, she heard him call her name, but she didn't stop. By the time she reached her room, a small, neat space on the ground floor with a single window that overlooked the gardens. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely turn the lock. She leaned against the door, eyes closed, trying to steady her breathing. Stupid. So stupid. She'd been so careful, and in one careless moment, she'd let him see. The scars on her arms were extensive, a roadmap of old violence written in raised tissue and discolored skin. They ran from her wrists almost to her shoulders, some thin and precise, others jagged and brutal. She'd gotten very good at hiding them, long sleeves in summer, careful positioning, never reaching for anything that would pull the fabric tight against her skin. But Adrian had felt them. And Adrian Moretti wasn't the kind of man who ignored things. Lauren pushed away from the door and went to the small bathroom attached to her room. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror above the sink. Pale skin, light brown hair pulled into a neat bun, brown eyes that looked too big in her thin face. She looked exactly like what she'd tried to become. Invisible. She turned on the cold water and splashed it on her face, then gripped the edge of the sink and counted her breaths the way her therapist had taught her. In for 4. Hold for 7. Out for 8. It didn't help much. She changed into her pajamas, long sleeves, long pants, even though her room was stifling in the summer heat, and climbed into bed. Sleep wouldn't come easily tonight. It rarely did when the past started creeping back in. The next morning dawned gray and humid, the kind of weather that made everything feel heavy. Lauren was up at 6, showered and dressed, and ready to pretend the previous night hadn't happened. Luca was already awake when she knocked on his door, building something elaborate out of blocks that covered half his floor. "Morning, Miss Lauren." He didn't look up from his construction project. Look, I made a castle. That's amazing. She stepped carefully around the blocks, making her way to his closet. What do you want to wear today? We're going to the park after breakfast if the rain holds off. The blue shirt with the dinosaur. Good choice. They fell into the familiar routine, getting dressed, brushing teeth, combing hair, which Luca protested loudly, as always. By the time they made it downstairs to the breakfast room, Lauren had almost convinced herself that last night's encounter with Adrian was just a blip, something they could both pretend hadn't happened. Then she walked into the breakfast room and found him sitting at the head of the table, coffee in hand, his eyes tracking her the moment she entered. Her stomach dropped. Adrian rarely had breakfast with Luca. He was usually gone before dawn, handling whatever dark business kept the Moretti empire running. His presence here, now, was deliberate. "Daddy!" Luca ran to him, climbing onto the chair beside his father with practiced ease. "Miss Lauren said we can go to the park today if it doesn't rain." "Did she?" Adrian's gaze never left Lauren's face. "That's very kind of Miss Lauren." Lauren busied herself with getting Luca settled, pouring his juice, cutting his toast into triangles the way he liked. Anything to avoid looking directly at Adrian. But she could feel his attention on her like a physical weight, cataloging every movement, every gesture. It made her skin crawl. "Miss Hayes," his voice was polite, formal. "Join us, please." It wasn't a request. Lauren sat down across from Luca, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes on the table. Maria, the housekeeper, brought her coffee and a plate of fruit without being asked. The woman had worked here for 20 years and knew better than to make guests ask for things. "Luca," Adrian said, cutting into his eggs with surgical precision. "Tell me what you learned yesterday." Luca launched into an enthusiastic recap of their afternoon lesson, something about dinosaurs and extinction events that Lauren had tried to make age-appropriate and mostly failed. Adrian listened with what appeared to be genuine interest, asking questions, correcting details, engaging in a way that made Lauren's chest tighten. He was a good father. That was the thing that made everything so complicated. For all his reputation, all the whispered warnings the other staff members had given her when she first arrived, Adrian Moretti loved his son with a fierceness that was almost painful to watch. It was the only soft spot in him she'd ever seen. Breakfast dragged on for an eternity. Lauren ate because not eating would draw attention, forcing down fruit she couldn't taste while trying to ignore the way Adrian's eyes kept finding her across the table. Finally, blessedly, Luca finished his toast and asked to be excused. Lauren stood immediately. "We should get going if we want to beat the rain. Miss Hayes." Adrian set down his coffee cup. "A moment, please. Luca, go wash your hands. Miss Lauren will meet you in the foyer." Luca scrambled down from his chair and darted out of the room, leaving Lauren alone with his father. The silence stretched out, thick and suffocating. Adrian leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "You don't have to be afraid," he said finally. "I'm not going to fire you." Of all the things Lauren had expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. Okay, but I'm going to ask you a question, and I'd appreciate an honest answer." He paused. "Who hurt you?" Lauren's throat closed up. She couldn't do this. She couldn't sit here in this beautiful room with its crystal chandeliers and imported china and talk about things that belonged to a different life, a different version of herself. "It's in the past," she managed. "It doesn't matter." "It matters if it affects your ability to do your job." "It doesn't." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I love Luca. I would never let anything from my personal life interfere with his care." "I believe you." Adrian's voice softened, just slightly. "But that's not what I asked." Lauren stood, her chair scraping against the floor. "Mr. Moretti, I appreciate your concern, but my personal history is my own. If you're not firing me, then I'd like to get Luca to the park before the weather turns." She walked to the door, her spine rigid, waiting for him to call her back, to push harder, to demand answers she couldn't give. Instead, he said, "Lauren." It was the first time he'd used her first name. She stopped but didn't turn around. "If you ever need help," he said quietly, "you only have to ask." The offer hung in the air between them, impossible and terrifying, and somehow worse than any threat could have been. Lauren left without answering. The park was crowded despite the threatening clouds, filled with nannies and stay-at-home parents trying to tire out their kids before the rain came. Lauren found their usual bench near the playground and settled in to watch Luca climb the jungle gym with reckless enthusiasm. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk." AM. Of course he had her number. He probably had a complete dossier on her by now. Background check, employment history, every address she'd lived at for the past 10 years. Men like Adrian Moretti didn't leave things to chance. She deleted the message without responding. Luca played for an hour, making friends with a little girl in a yellow dress and constructing an elaborate game that seemed to involve pirates and dragons and a lot of running. Lauren watched him with the part of her brain that was always on duty, while the rest spiraled through increasingly anxious scenarios. What if Adrian pushed harder? What if he went digging into her past and found things she'd worked so hard to bury? What if you look like you're about to bolt? Lauren's head snapped up. A woman about her age stood a few feet away, holding a coffee cup and wearing an amused expression. She was tall, black, with box braids pulled into a high ponytail, and the kind of effortless style Lauren had never managed to pull off. "Sorry?" Lauren said. "You've got that look, like you're calculating the fastest route to the exit." The woman gestured to the bench. "Mind if I sit? My daughter's the one in yellow playing with your kid." "Oh, sure." The woman sat, stretching out her legs with a satisfied sigh. "I'm Jasmine. Jazz." "Lauren." "Nice to meet you, Lauren. You're Luca Moretti's nanny, right?" Warning bells went off in Lauren's head. She'd gotten used to people recognizing Luca, to the subtle shift in their demeanor when they realized whose child he was. "Yes? Relax." Jazz took a sip of her coffee. "I'm not here to pump you for gossip or whatever. My ex-husband works in the same circles as the Morettis. I've learned to mind my business." "Smart. Survival instinct." Jazz watched the kids play for a moment. "Although I have to say, you've got guts working for that family. Adrian Moretti's reputation alone would send most people running." Lauren's fingers tightened around the edge of the bench. "He's been perfectly professional." "I'm sure he has." There was something knowing in Jazz's voice, a suggestion that she understood more than she was saying. "Still, can't be easy living in that house. All those secrets." "I don't know what you mean." Jazz turned to look at her directly, and her expression softened. "Look, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. You seem like you could use a friend. Someone who gets it." "Gets what?" "What it's like to work for people who play by different rules than the rest of us." Jazz pulled a card from her pocket and held it out. "My number. If you ever want to grab coffee or just talk to someone who won't ask questions, give me a call." Lauren took the card automatically, too surprised to refuse. "Why would you?" "Because 3 years ago, I was in your shoes. Different family, same kind of pressure, and I didn't have anyone to talk to." Jazz stood, draining the last of her coffee. "Sometimes it helps to know you're not alone, that's all." She called for her daughter, waved goodbye to Luca, and was gone before Lauren could process what had just happened. The rain started 20 minutes later, fat drops that sent parents scrambling to collect their children. Lauren got Luca into the car just as the sky opened up completely, sheets of water turning the world gray and blurred. By the time they made it back to the estate, Luca was yawning, worn out from playing. Lauren got him upstairs for a bath and quiet time, going through the motions while her mind replayed the morning's conversations on an endless loop. "Who hurt you? If you ever need help, you only have to ask. Sometimes it helps to know you're not alone." She didn't want help. She didn't want to need anyone. She'd learned the hard way what happened when you relied on other people, when you let them in close enough to see your weaknesses. But Adrian Moretti had already seen. And that changed everything. That night, after Luca was asleep and the house had settled into its usual quiet, Lauren found herself in the estate's library. It was one of her favorite rooms, 2 stories of books, comfortable chairs, tall windows that let in moonlight on clear nights. She came here when she couldn't sleep, when the walls of her small room felt too close. She was curled up in a window seat with a worn paperback when she heard footsteps. She knew who it was before he appeared. The staff moved differently, quieter, more careful. Adrian walked like he owned every space he entered. Because he did. "You're up late." He appeared in the doorway, still in his work clothes but with his jacket gone, his shirt sleeves rolled up again. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes that suggested he slept about as well as she did. "So are you." Lauren marked her page and set the book aside, fighting the urge to flee. She'd already run from him once today. Doing it again would only make things worse. Adrian moved into the room, not approaching her directly, but not leaving either. He went to the bar cart in the corner and poured himself 2 fingers of scotch, the amber liquid catching the lamplight. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his back still to her. Lauren's shoulders tensed. "I might not answer." "Fair enough." He turned to face her, leaning against the bookshelf with a casualness that had to be calculated. Everything about Adrian Moretti was calculated. "Why did you take this job?" "I needed work." "You could have worked anywhere. Agencies like yours place nannies with celebrities, politicians, people who might be demanding but aren't." He gestured vaguely. "Aren't what I am." "What are you?" The question slipped out before Lauren could stop it. Adrian's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Dangerous." "I know." "Then why stay?" "Because Luca needs someone who actually sees him," Lauren thought. "Because this job came with a room and steady pay and enough distance from my old life that I could finally breathe. Because I'm good at being invisible, and your house is full of shadows I can hide in." "Because it's a good job," she said instead. "Luca is easy to love." "He is." Something genuine flickered across Adrian's face before the mask slid back into place. His mother died when he was 2. An accident. Lauren had heard the rumors, of course. The staff whispered when they thought she wasn't listening, but Adrian had never mentioned it directly. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "So am I." He took a drink, his eyes distant. "I've tried to be enough for him, to be both parents, but I'm not built for softness." "You're doing better than you think, am I?" His gaze sharpened, focusing back on her. "Or are you just good at making people feel better about their failures?" The words could have been cruel, but they weren't. Just honest, in the way only the truly exhausted could be honest. "I don't think you're failing," Lauren said. "Luca knows he's loved. That's what matters." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, studying her over the rim of his glass. "You're good at deflection, turning conversations away from yourself." "I'm a nanny. It's part of the job description." "No." He set his glass down on a nearby table and took a step closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. "It's more than that. You've built walls so high I'm surprised you can see over them." Lauren's hands clenched in her lap, hidden by the book. "Maybe I have good reasons." "I'm sure you do." Another step. "But Lauren, those scars on your arms." "Buzz, stop." She stood abruptly, the book falling to the floor. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to ask about things that aren't your business. When it comes to someone who spends 12 hours a day with my son, everything is my business. I would never hurt Luca. Never." "I know that." Adrian's voice softened, just a fraction. "But someone hurt you. Badly. And I need to know if that's going to come back on my family." It was a fair question, a responsible question, the kind of thing any good father would ask. It still made Lauren want to scream. "It won't," she said, forcing the words through clenched teeth. "I left that life behind. It's over." "Is it?" "Yes." "Then why are you wearing long sleeves in June? Why do you flinch every time someone moves too quickly? Why—" He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Why do you look at me like I'm going to hurt you?" "Because men like you always do." The words came out before she could stop them, raw and honest and completely unfiltered. Adrian went very still. For a moment, the only sound was the rain against the windows, steady and relentless. "I see," he said finally. His voice was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. "Thank you for your honesty." He picked up his glass and walked to the door, and Lauren thought that was it, that he was leaving. But he paused in the doorway, not looking back. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "I'm not him. Whoever he was, whatever he did, I'm not him." Then he was gone, and Lauren was alone in the library with her racing heart and the ghost of old bruises that never quite faded. She sank back onto the window seat and pulled her knees to her chest, making herself small. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the world clean in a way she'd never quite managed for herself. Maybe Adrian was right. Maybe she was running. Maybe the walls she'd built were too high, too thick, keeping out not just the bad, but anything real. But she'd tried real once. She'd tried trust and love and all the things you were supposed to want, and it had nearly killed her. So she'd take her walls and her long sleeves and her carefully constructed invisibility. She'd take the safety of shadows over the danger of light, even if it meant staying alone. Even if it meant never letting anyone close enough to see the truth written on her skin. Lauren sat in the library until the rain stopped and the sky began to lighten, her book forgotten at her feet. Her arms wrapped tight around herself as if she could hold all her broken pieces together through sheer force of will. Tomorrow, she'd go back to being invisible, back to pretending, back to the careful dance of keeping everyone at arm's length. But tonight, in the quiet dark, she let herself admit the truth she'd been avoiding for 3 months. Adrian Moretti terrified her, not because he was dangerous, but because some part of her wanted to trust him. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. The morning after the library conversation, Lauren woke with a headache that felt like someone had taken a hammer to her skull. She'd managed maybe 3 hours of sleep, her mind too busy replaying every word, every look, every moment when she'd let her guard slip. She got dressed in the dark, pulling on her usual armor, long-sleeved shirt despite the heat, jeans, hair pulled back so tight it made her scalp ache. Control. That's what she needed. Control over her appearance, her reactions, her life. Luca was already awake when she knocked, sitting cross-legged on his bed, with a picture book spread across his lap. "Morning," she said, keeping her voice light. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." He looked up at her with those two perceptive eyes. "You look sad, Miss Lauren." Kids. They saw everything you tried to hide. "Just tired, buddy. Come on, let's get you dressed. Your dad wants to have breakfast with you again." That got his attention. Luca scrambled off the bed, excited in the way only children could be about small changes to routine. Lauren helped him into clothes, brushed his teeth, dealt with the daily battle over hair gel that he insisted made him look professional like daddy. When they came down to breakfast, Adrian was already there, but he wasn't alone. A man sat across from him, tall, lean, with salt and pepper hair and a face that looked like it had seen too much. He wore a suit that screamed government issue, and there was a shoulder holster visible under his jacket. Lauren's stomach dropped. "Luca," Adrian's voice cut through the room. "Good morning, come have breakfast." But his eyes were on Lauren, and there was something in them that made her want to run. The man stood when they entered, offering a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You must be Miss Hayes. Detective Marco Russo, Organized Crime Division." Lauren's hand tightened on Luca's shoulder. "Detective. I was just having a conversation with Mr. Moretti about some ongoing investigations." Russo's gaze flicked over her, assessing. "Nothing to worry about, just routine questions." Nothing about this felt routine. Adrian gestured to Luca. "Come eat, son. Miss Hayes, please join us." It wasn't a request. Lauren sat, her mind racing through possibilities. Had Adrian called the police? Was this about her past? Had someone found her? Luca chattered through breakfast, oblivious to the tension crackling through the room. Russo asked him questions about school, about his favorite games, keeping up a friendly facade while his eyes cataloged everything. Finally, after what felt like hours, Luca finished eating and asked to be excused to play in the garden. Adrian nodded and Lauren started to stand. "Miss Hayes," Russo's voice stopped her. "Actually, I'd like to ask you a few questions as well, if you don't mind." Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, but refusing would only make things worse. "Of course," she said, sitting back down. Adrian stood. "I'll check on Luca." He left, and suddenly Lauren was alone with a cop who looked at her like he already knew all her secrets. Russo pulled out a small notebook, flipped it open. "How long have you been working for the Moretti family?" 3 months. "And before that?" "I worked for an agency, different families, short-term placements. Must be hard moving around like that. Never really settling anywhere." Lauren said nothing. Let him fill the silence. "See, here's the thing, Miss Hayes." Russo leaned back in his chair, casual. "I've been investigating the Moretti organization for 5 years now. I know Adrian's business, I know his associates, I know how he operates. And one thing I've learned is that he doesn't do anything without a reason. I don't understand what this has to do with me. You appeared out of nowhere 3 months ago. Minimal background, minimal references, hired directly without going through the usual vetting process. That strikes me as odd." Lauren's pulse hammered in her throat. "I have a clean record. I've never been arrested, never been in trouble. I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything." Russo's voice softened, and somehow that was worse. "I'm just trying to understand why Adrian Moretti would bring someone into his home, around his son, without his usual paranoid level of security checks. Maybe he saw that I was good at my job. Maybe. Russo tapped his pen against the notebook. Or maybe you have something he wants. Information, connections, leverage. The accusation hung in the air between them. Lauren forced herself to meet his eyes, to not look away. I'm a nanny, detective. I take care of a 6-year-old boy. I don't have information or connections or anything else that would interest someone like Mr. Moretti beyond my ability to do my job well. You sure about that? Yes. Russo studied her for a long moment, then flipped his notebook closed. Okay. Thank you for your time, Miss Hayes. He stood, handed her a card. If you ever need anything, if you ever feel unsafe here, you call me, day or night. Lauren took the card because refusing would be suspicious. I'm perfectly safe. I hope so. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think you're telling the truth. I think you're exactly what you appear to be, someone trying to live a quiet life. But Adrian Moretti doesn't do quiet. Sooner or later, his world is going to crash into yours. And when it does, you're going to need someone on your side who isn't part of his organization. He left before Lauren could respond. She sat there for several minutes, staring at the card in her hand. Detective Marco Russo, Organized Crime Division. A direct line to someone who made it his business to destroy men like Adrian. She should throw it away. Burn it. Pretend this conversation never happened. Instead, she slipped it into her pocket. Adrian found her in the garden 20 minutes later, watching Luca chase butterflies through the rose bushes. What did Russo want? He didn't sit, just stood beside her, hands in his pockets. To warn me about you. Did it work? Lauren looked up at him. In the morning light, he looked tired, the lines around his eyes deeper than they should be on someone his age. Should it? Probably. He watched his son play, something almost sad crossing his face. Everything Russo thinks about me is true. I'm not a good man, Lauren. I've done things that would make you run screaming if you knew the details. So why tell me? Because I'm tired of lying. He finally looked at her, and the honesty in his eyes was almost painful. And because you deserve to know what you're walking into. I'm not walking into anything. I work for you, that's all. Is it? His voice dropped lower. Because last night in the library, it felt like something more than a professional conversation. Heat crept up Lauren's neck. You asked invasive questions. I responded honestly. That doesn't make us friends. No, Adrian agreed, but it makes us something. Before Lauren could figure out how to respond to that, Luca came running over, flushed and happy, a flower clutched in his dirty hand. Look what I found. Can we press it in a book like you showed me? Lauren took the flower, grateful for the interruption. Of course. Go wash your hands first, okay? Luca ran off toward the house. Adrian watched him go, then turned back to Lauren. Russo's right about one thing, he said quietly. My world is dangerous, and the closer you get, the more danger you're in. If you want to leave, I'll understand. Do you want me to leave? No. The word was immediate, definite. Luca needs you, and... He stopped himself, jaw tightening. Just no. Then I'm staying. Lauren stood, brushing off her jeans. But Mr. Moretti, I need you to stop asking about my past. I need you to respect that some doors stay closed for a reason. I can't promise that. Why not? Because someone hurt you badly enough to leave scars, and I need to know if they're still a threat. They're not, Lauren said too quickly. Adrian's eyes sharpened. You're lying. I'm not. Yes, you are. I've spent my entire adult life reading people, learning to spot deception. And right now you're terrified of something that has nothing to do with me or Russo or anything happening in this house. He took a step closer. Who is he, Lauren? Who are you running from? I'm not running. Then what do you call it? Surviving. The word came out harsh, bitter. I call it surviving, and I'm doing just fine on my own. She walked away before he could see the tears threatening to spill over, before her carefully constructed walls could crack any further. The rest of the day passed in a blur of routine. Luca's lessons, lunch, afternoon playtime, dinner. Lauren moved through it all on autopilot, hyper-aware of Adrian's presence even when he wasn't in the room. That night, after Luca was asleep, she sat on her bed and pulled out her phone. She had one contact she'd avoided calling for months. Dr. Sarah Chen, the therapist who'd helped her put the pieces back together 2 years ago. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. Lauren? Is that you? Hi, Dr. Chen. It's been a while. How are you? Lauren laughed, the sound hollow. Honestly, I don't know. Tell me what's going on. So she did. Not everything. Never everything. But enough. The job, the questions, the way Adrian seemed determined to excavate truths she'd buried deep. It sounds like your employer is concerned about you, Dr. Chen said when Lauren finished. Or he's controlling. Those aren't mutually exclusive. There was a pause. But Lauren, I'm more concerned about something else. You said the detective asked if you had information. What kind of information could you possibly have about organized crime? Lauren's stomach twisted. Nothing. I don't know anything. Then why did the question scare you? Because Marcus had connections, Lauren thought. Because the man who'd spent 3 years systematically destroying her had worked for people who made the Morettis look like amateurs. Because somewhere in the tangled mess of her past was a thread that, if pulled, could unravel everything. It didn't, she lied. Dr. Chen sighed. You're doing it again, shutting down when things get close to the truth. We talked about this, Lauren. Healing requires honesty. I am being honest. No, you're being careful. There's a difference. Another pause. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to really think about the answer. Are you safe where you are? Yes. Are you sure? Because if your employer is involved in criminal activity, he hasn't done anything to me. He's been nothing but professional. That's not what I asked. Lauren closed her eyes. I'm safe, Dr. Chen, I promise. Okay. But Lauren, if that changes, if you feel threatened or unsafe in any way, you call me immediately, day or night. Understood? Understood. They talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. Lauren sat in the dark, her phone clutched in her hand, feeling more alone than she had in months. The knock on her door made her jump. Miss Hayes? It was Maria, the housekeeper. Mr. Moretti would like to see you in his study. Lauren's heart sank. Now? Yes, miss. She followed Maria through the quiet house to the second floor, where Adrian's private study occupied a corner with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. Maria knocked once, then disappeared, leaving Lauren alone in the hallway. Come in. Adrian's voice came through the door, muffled. Lauren steeled herself and entered. The study was all dark wood and leather, bookshelves lining the walls, a massive desk dominating the center. Adrian stood by the window, a glass of scotch in his hand, his back to her. Close the door, he said without turning around. She did, her mouth going dry. I had my head of security run a background check on you. Adrian's voice was carefully neutral. A real one. Not the surface-level employment verification we did when you were hired. Lauren's blood turned to ice. That's a violation of my privacy. Yes. He turned to face her and his expression was unreadable. But I needed to know what I'm dealing with. And what are you dealing with? Adrian set down his glass and picked up a file folder from his desk. Lauren Marie Hayes, born in Seattle, moved to Portland at 18. Worked various jobs, waitress, retail, office temp. 3 years ago, you disappeared. No employment records, no address, no paper trail of any kind. Then 6 months ago, you reappeared in New York with a new apartment, new job, new life. Each word was a nail in a coffin Lauren had thought was sealed. Those 3 years? Adrian continued, his eyes boring into hers. You were in a domestic violence shelter in Boston. Not just visiting, living there. Full-time resident under protective custody. Lauren's legs went weak. She grabbed the back of a chair to stay upright. The shelter keeps everything confidential, Adrian said. But I have resources, connections. And what I found, his jaw tightened. The police reports alone were enough to make me want to put a bullet in someone's head. Stop. The word came out broken. Please, just stop. His name is Marcus Vance, 38, works as a financial consultant for the Calabrese crime family. You were together for 2 years before you finally got out. I said stop. Lauren's voice cracked, tears streaming down her face now. You had no right to dig into that. I had every right. Adrian's voice rose to match hers. You're in my house, with my son, and your ex-boyfriend works for people who would kill me in a heartbeat if they thought it would give them an advantage. So yes, I looked into your past, and I'm not apologizing for it. The Calabrese family? Lauren's mind was reeling. What does that have to do with anything? Adrian's expression darkened. Everything. The Calabreses have been trying to move into my territory for 5 years. We've been in a cold war that's getting warmer by the day. And now I find out that my son's nanny has a personal connection to one of their people? I don't have a connection. I escaped from him. There's a difference. Not to them. Not if they find out you're here. Adrian moved closer, and for the first time since she'd met him, Lauren saw real fear in his eyes. Lauren, do you understand what this means? If Marcus finds out where you are, if the Calabreses decide to use you as leverage, they won't. Marcus doesn't know I'm in New York. No one knows. Are you certain? Lauren wanted to say yes, wanted to believe that the careful steps she'd taken, the new name she'd used at the shelter, the months of hiding, had been enough. But certainty was a luxury she couldn't afford. I thought I was, she whispered. Adrian's phone buzzed on his desk. He glanced at it, and whatever he saw made his face go hard. We need to move, now. He grabbed her arm, not roughly but urgently. My security just spotted 2 cars circling the estate. Unknown vehicles, no plates. What does that mean? It means someone's doing reconnaissance. He was already pulling her toward the door. It means we're out of time. They moved through the house quickly, Adrian's hand still on her arm, his body between her and the windows. He spoke into his phone in rapid Italian, giving orders to people Lauren couldn't see. Where's Luca? She asked, panic rising in her throat. Safe room with his security detail. He'll be fine. They reached the kitchen, and Adrian pulled open what looked like a pantry door but revealed a narrow staircase leading down. This leads to the garage. There's a car waiting. I don't understand. What's happening? Someone wants you, Lauren, and they're willing to come onto my property to get you. Adrian's eyes met hers, fierce and protective. But I'm not letting that happen. They descended into darkness, the door closing behind them with a heavy thud that sounded like a tomb sealing shut. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in sickly yellow. Lauren's hands were shaking so badly she could barely walk. This couldn't be happening. She'd been so careful, so cautious. How had Marcus found her? They emerged into an underground garage that Lauren hadn't known existed. A black SUV sat with its engine running, a man in tactical gear behind the wheel. Get in the back, Adrian ordered. Lauren climbed in, her mind still struggling to process. Adrian slid in beside her, pulling a gun from somewhere and checking it with practiced ease. Where are we going? Her voice sounded small, childlike. Somewhere safe. One of my properties across town. The SUV lurched forward, tires squealing. Lauren, I need you to tell me everything. Everything about Marcus, about how you got away, about anyone who might know you're here. I don't know how he found me. I swear I don't. Think. Did you contact anyone from your old life? Friends, family, anyone? No, the shelter helped me cut all ties. New phone, new email, new everything. Lauren's mind raced back through the past months. The only person I've talked to is Dr. Chen, my therapist, and she would never... Phone calls can be traced, even encrypted ones, if someone has the right resources. Lauren's stomach dropped. She'd called Dr. Chen tonight, from her personal phone, in the house. Oh no, no. It's okay. Adrian's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezing once. We'll handle this, but I need you to be completely honest with me now. No more walls, no more hiding. I can't protect you if I don't know what I'm protecting you from. So Lauren talked. She told him about meeting Marcus at a coffee shop, about how charming he'd been at first, how he'd made her feel special and safe and loved. She told him about the first time he'd hit her, 6 months in, and how he'd cried and apologized and sworn it would never happen again. About the second time, the third, the 100th, until she stopped counting and started just surviving. She told him about the hospital visits, the broken bones, the concussion that had left her unable to work for 2 months, about the time Marcus had strangled her until she passed out, then held her while she came to, whispering that he loved her, that she made him do it, that she needed to try harder to be good. Adrian's hand tightened around hers with each revelation, his jaw so tight she could see the muscle jumping. The shelter helped me leave, Lauren finished, her voice raw. I waited until he was at work, grabbed one bag, and ran. I didn't even say goodbye to anyone, just disappeared. And you've had no contact since? None. The shelter has a strict no-contact policy for protective custody cases. I don't even know if he's looking for me. He's looking. Adrian's voice was flat, certain. Men like that always look. They can't stand losing control. The SUV pulled into another underground garage, This one belonging to a sleek high-rise in a different part of the city. Adrian's driver, Marco, he'd called him, parked and killed the engine. Apartment's secure, boss. No one knows about this location except Inner Circle. Good. Stay alert. Rotating guard on the entrance, and I want eyes on every camera feed within a 3-block radius. Already done. They took a private elevator to the penthouse. The apartment was modern, minimalist, nothing like the warm chaos of the estate. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city spread out below them, lights twinkling like fallen stars. Adrian went straight to a phone on the wall, made 3 calls in rapid Italian. Lauren caught enough words to understand he was coordinating security, checking on Luca, making sure the estate was locked down tight. When he finished, he turned to find her standing in the middle of the living room, shaking. "Hey!" He crossed to her, hands hovering like he wanted to touch her, but wasn't sure if he should. "You're safe here. I promise." "How can you promise that? You don't know what Marcus is capable of." "Yes, I do." Adrian's voice went cold. "I looked into him, remember? I know exactly what he's capable of. And I'm telling you right now, he's not getting anywhere near you." "You can't know that. Watch me." The confidence in his voice should have been arrogant. Instead, it was the first thing that had made Lauren feel like maybe, possibly, she might actually survive this. She sank onto the couch, her legs finally giving out. Adrian disappeared into the kitchen and returned with water and something stronger, whiskey by the smell. "Drink," he ordered, pressing the whiskey glass into her hand. Lauren took a sip, coughed, took another. The burn helped center her, brought her back into her body. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I never meant to bring this to your door. If I'd known Marcus was connected to your enemies—" "Don't." Adrian sat beside her, close but not touching. "This isn't your fault. None of it is your fault. I should have told you. When you first asked about the scars, I should have just— You didn't owe me your trauma." His voice softened. "You don't owe anyone your story until you're ready to tell it." Tears welled up again, and Lauren was so tired of crying, so tired of being weak. "I thought I was past this. I thought if I could just start over, be someone new, it would all go away. Trauma doesn't work like that." "No, it doesn't." She looked at him, this dangerous man who'd somehow become the only person standing between her and the past. "Why are you helping me? You could just fire me, wash your hands of the whole thing." "I could," Adrian agreed, "but I'm not going to." "Why?" He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching her face like he was trying to figure out the answer himself. "'Cause I know what it's like," he said finally, "to be trapped in a life you didn't choose with no way out. Because Luca loves you, and that kid has good instincts. And because—" He stopped, shook his head. "Because I want to." "That's not a reason." "It's the only one I've got." They sat in silence, the city humming beyond the windows. Lauren should have been terrified sitting in a strange apartment with a man who admitted to doing terrible things, whose world was built on violence and control. But she wasn't. She was exhausted and scared and still shaking, but she wasn't afraid of Adrian. Maybe that made her an idiot. Maybe her judgment was completely shot after everything with Marcus. Or maybe, for the first time in years, her instincts were actually right about someone. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you sleep. Tomorrow we figure out how to end this." "End it how?" Adrian's smile was sharp, predatory. "Leave that to me." Lauren didn't sleep. She lay in the guest bedroom Adrian had shown her to, staring at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the city outside. Every car horn made her flinch. Every voice in the hallway sent her pulse racing. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up and padded into the kitchen. The apartment was dark except for the glow of the city coming through the windows. She was reaching for a glass when a voice made her jump. "Couldn't sleep either?" Adrian sat in the living room, barely visible in the shadows. A laptop was open in front of him, casting his face in blue light. "Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you." "You didn't." He closed the laptop. "Come here." Lauren hesitated, then moved into the living room. Adrian gestured to the chair across from him, and she sat. "I've been going through Marcus's known associates," he said, "trying to figure out how he tracked you down." "And?" "He's got connections I didn't know about. The Calabrese family has been expanding their intelligence network. They've got people in hospitals, shelters, social services. If Marcus put in a request to find you, They would have the resources to do it. Lauren's stomach turned. I was so careful. I didn't use my real name at the shelter. I changed everything. Social security number? She froze. I had to use it for employment verification when I got the nanny job. Adrian's jaw tightened. That's how they found you. Someone flagged it in the system, and it worked its way back to Marcus. I'm so stupid. I should have thought, you're not stupid. You were trying to build a legitimate life, and that requires legitimate documentation. You couldn't have known. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But Lauren, we need to talk about what happens next. You want me to leave? No, I want you to let me handle this. The way he said it made her skin crawl. Handle it how? Marcus Vance works for my enemies. That makes him my problem as much as yours. Adrian, no, I don't want you to... She couldn't even say it. I don't want violence. I just want to disappear again. And how long do you think that would work? A year? 6 months? His voice was gentle but firm. Men like Marcus don't stop. They can't. And now that he knows you're connected to me, he's got even more reason to come after you. Then I'll leave the city. Leave the country if I have to. Running didn't work the first time. It worked for 3 years. And then it stopped working. Adrian stood, moving to the window. I'm not going to let you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Lauren's throat tightened. You don't get to make that choice for me. You're right. I don't. He turned to face her. But I'm asking you to trust me. Let me do what I'm good at. Let me make this problem go away. By killing him. Adrian didn't deny it. Yes. The word hung in the air between them, brutal and honest. Lauren should have been horrified. Should have run screaming from a man who could talk about murder so casually. But all she felt was tired. I can't ask you to do that, she said finally. You're not asking, I'm offering. Why? Why would you risk starting a war with the Calabrese family over someone you barely know? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Because I know what it's like to be powerless. To watch someone you care about suffer and not be able to stop it. My wife, he stopped, swallowed hard. She was killed because I couldn't protect her. Because I was too slow, too blind to see the threat until it was too late. I'm not making that mistake again. Lauren's chest ached. I'm not your wife. No. But you're in my house, taking care of my son, and that makes you my responsibility. And more than that, he met her eyes. I want to help you. Not because I have to. Because I want to. I don't understand you. That makes two of us. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. I haven't understood myself since the moment you walked into my house. Before Lauren could figure out what to say to that, Adrian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went cold. What is it? My contact at the police department. They just found a woman's body in the river, mid-30s, blonde, beaten to death. His eyes met hers. She was carrying a fake ID with your name on it. The room tilted. Lauren grabbed the arm of the chair to steady herself. What? Marcus is sending a message. He wants you to know he's close, that he can hurt people around you. Adrian's voice was ice. This is what I'm talking about, Lauren. This is why running won't work. He's escalating. That woman, she didn't have anything to do with this. She was innocent. Innocent people always pay the price in our world. Adrian moved closer, crouching in front of her chair so they were eye level. But I'm not going to let you be one of them. Do you understand? Whatever it takes, however this has to end, I'm not letting him hurt you. Lauren's hands were shaking again. He killed someone. Just to scare me. What kind of person does that? The kind who thinks he owns you. The kind who can't stand the idea that you got away. Adrian's hand covered hers, warm and solid. But you're not his anymore. You're under my protection now. I don't want to be under anyone's protection. I don't want to belong to anyone. That's not what I meant. He pulled back slightly. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to keep you alive. Lauren looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. Fear. Adrian Moretti, the man everyone was afraid for her. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay. I'll let you help. But Adrian, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me you won't become like him. Promise me that whatever you do, you won't turn into the kind of man who hurts innocent people.
Adrian's jaw tightened. I can't promise I'm a good man, Lauren. I'm not. I'm not asking for good. I'm asking for human. She squeezed his hand. There's a difference between protecting someone and destroying everything around them to do it. He was quiet for a long moment. I'll try. That's all I'm asking. The sky was starting to lighten outside, gray dawn creeping across the city. Adrian's phone buzzed again, and this time when he checked it, he cursed under his breath. What now?
Marcus just walked into the Calabrese family headquarters. My source says he's asking for a sit-down with their boss. Adrian was already dialing someone. He's making an official request to use their resources to find you. Can they do that? Just hand me over? If they think it benefits them? Absolutely. Adrian barked orders in Italian to whoever picked up, then hung up. We need to move this up. I was going to wait, do more surveillance, but we're out of time. Move what up? The meat. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch. I'm going to offer the Calabreses a trade. Something they want more than they want to help Marcus. What could you possibly have that they'd want more than leverage over you? Adrian's smile was sharp and dangerous. Territory. The waterfront distribution they've been trying to muscle into for 3 years. I'll give them exclusive rights in exchange for cutting Marcus loose. You'd give up part of your business just to protect me? It's not just to protect you, it's strategic. The waterfront operation has been more trouble than it's worth anyway. And this way I get something valuable in return. Their guarantee that Marcus becomes persona non grata. They won't help him, they won't protect him, and more importantly, they'll let me handle him without retaliation. Lauren stood, her legs unsteady. And by handle, you mean, yes, I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. He's looking for me. I should be there. Lauren, these people eat innocence for breakfast. You walk into that room, you become a target, a weakness they can exploit. I'm already a target, she crossed her arms. And I'm tired of hiding. If you're going to negotiate my life, I deserve to be in the room. Adrian looked at her for a long moment, something like respect flickering in his eyes. You're serious. Completely. You understand what you're walking into? These aren't businessmen. They're killers. They'll look at you and see exactly what Marcus sees, something weak, something they can use. Let them look. Lauren's voice was steadier than she felt. I'm done being weak. You were never weak. Adrian's voice was soft. Surviving what you survived, that takes more strength than most people have. The words hit her harder than she expected. No one had ever said that to her. Not the shelter counselors, not Dr. Chen, not anyone. They'd called her brave, called her a survivor, but never strong. Thank you, she whispered. Adrian nodded once, then checked his watch. The meet is in 2 hours. We need to prep. What followed was the strangest morning of Lauren's life. Adrian made phone calls while she showered and changed into clothes that had appeared in the guest room, designer labels that fit perfectly, which meant he'd had someone shop for her while she slept. Or not slept, more accurately. When she emerged, Adrian was waiting with Marco and 2 other men she didn't recognize. Lauren Hayes, meet Sal and Tommy. They'll be part of your security detail. Sal was built like a refrigerator, all muscle and scars. Tommy was smaller, wiry, with eyes that never stopped moving. Both of them nodded at her with a professionalism that was somehow more terrifying than hostility would have been. Security detail? Lauren repeated. You think I'm letting you walk into a meeting with the Calabrese family without protection? These two don't leave your side. Adrian handed her something small and black. And this doesn't leave your pocket. It was a phone. Sleek, expensive, nothing like her old one. Speed dial 1 is me. Speed dial 2 is Marco. Speed dial 3 is Detective Russo. Russo? The cop who came to the house? He's compromised, on my payroll, but he's also genuine. If something happens to me, he'll get you out. Adrian's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing weather patterns instead of his own potential death. The phone is encrypted and untraceable. Use it for everything from now on. Lauren stared at the device in her hand. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. Adrian stepped closer, his hand finding her shoulder. But if you want to back out, now's the time. Once we walk into that building, there's no turning back. Lauren thought about the woman in the river, about Marcus's hands around her throat, his voice in her ear telling her she deserved it, about 3 years of hiding and 6 months of pretending to be someone new. I'm not backing out. Then let's go. They took 2 SUVs to a warehouse district on the far edge of the city, the kind of place where people minded their business, and cops didn't patrol too closely. The Calabrese headquarters was an old shipping facility that looked abandoned from the outside but hummed with activity once you knew what to look for. Armed men flanked the entrance. They patted down Adrian and his team with practiced efficiency, finding and confiscating 3 guns, 2 knives, and something that looked like a switchblade but was actually a tracking device. When they got to Lauren, she flinched at the first touch. "Easy," one of the guards said, not unkindly. "Just procedure." She forced herself to stand still, to breathe through it. The guard was quick and professional, and then it was over. They were led through a maze of hallways to a conference room that looked like it belonged in a corporate office building, not a crime family's headquarters. Leather chairs, a polished table, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water. 4 people waited inside. 3 men in expensive suits and 1 woman who looked like she could kill you with a paperclip. The man at the head of the table stood as they entered. Vincent Calabrese was in his 60s, silver-haired and barrel-chested, with the kind of presence that filled a room. His eyes went straight to Lauren, assessing and dismissing her in the same glance. "Adrian, good of you to come." His voice was smooth, almost friendly. "And you brought a guest." "Lauren Hayes. She's the reason we're having this conversation." Vincent's eyebrows rose. "The nanny. Marcus has been very vocal about finding you, Miss Hayes." Lauren's throat was dry, but she kept her voice level. "So I've heard. Interesting that you'd show your face here given the circumstances." "I'm tired of hiding." A smile flickered across Vincent's face. "Brave or stupid, I haven't decided which." "Does it matter?" Adrian cut in, drawing Vincent's attention back to him. "We're here to make a deal. So your message indicated the waterfront distribution in exchange for cutting Marcus loose." Vincent sat back down, gesturing for them to do the same. "Bold offer. That operation must be worth, what, 15 million a year to you?" "Closer to 20, but it's been a headache. Constant union disputes, Port Authority breathing down our necks, competitors trying to muscle in. You want it? It's yours. In exchange for 1 low-level financial consultant?" Vincent shook his head. "Seems like a poor trade." "Marcus Vance isn't just a consultant. He's a direct connection to your intelligence network, which means he's a liability. The fact that he's using your resources to pursue a personal vendetta should concern you." "Why? Because it inconveniences you?" "Because it's sloppy." Adrian leaned forward. "You built this organization on discipline and control. Marcus is neither. He killed an innocent woman last night just to send a message. That kind of heat, that kind of recklessness, it puts your entire operation at risk." Vincent's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the room. "I heard about that. Unfortunate business. It's going to get more unfortunate. Marcus won't stop at 1. He'll keep escalating until he gets what he wants, and everybody he drops is more evidence pointing back to your family." The woman at the table spoke for the first time. "Marcus is valuable to us. His financial expertise has saved us millions in laundering fees. Then replace him." Adrian's voice was cold. "There are 1,000 accountants in this city who'd jump at the chance to work for you. But there's only one chance to take the waterfront without a war." Vincent stroked his chin, considering. "You make a compelling argument. But I'm curious about something." His eyes cut to Lauren. "Why is she worth it? She's just a nanny. Pretty, sure, but there are a lot of pretty girls in the world. What makes her special enough to trade 20 million a year?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Adrian didn't hesitate. "She's under my protection. That makes her worth whatever I decide she's worth." "Or," Vincent said slowly, "she's more than just your employee. Maybe Marcus isn't the only one with a personal interest here." Lauren felt every eye in the room turn to her. She wanted to disappear, to go back to being invisible. But she'd promised herself she was done hiding. "He's right," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "Adrian is protecting me because I take care of his son, because I'm part of his household. But you're asking the wrong question." Vincent's eyebrows rose. "Am I? You're asking why Adrian thinks I'm worth it. You should be asking why you think Marcus is worth protecting." Lauren met his gaze, refusing to look away. "He's a domestic abuser who nearly killed me multiple times. He's murdered an innocent woman. He's using your family's resources for a personal obsession that has nothing to do with your business. And you're considering keeping him around because he's good with numbers?" The room was silent.
Vincent studied her with new interest. You've got steel in you. I can see why Adrian keeps you around. He turned to the woman beside him. Sophia, what do you think? Sophia's dark eyes moved between Lauren and Adrian. I think Marcus has become a liability, and I think the waterfront deal is better than another war with the Morettis. Vincent nodded slowly, then looked at the other two men, who both gave subtle nods of agreement. All right, Vincent said. Here's my counteroffer. We give you Marcus. We'll cut him loose, make it clear he's on his own. You get the waterfront, plus our guarantee that we won't retaliate for whatever you do to him. But there was always a but. We want assurances this won't come back on us. Marcus disappears quietly. No spectacle, no evidence, nothing that draws law enforcement attention. Can you manage that? Adrian's smile was predatory. Disappearing people is one of my specialties. Then we have a deal. Vincent stood, extending his hand. Adrian shook it, the gesture sealing something far more binding than any contract. They were almost out the door when Vincent called out. Miss Hayes! Lauren turned. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for what Marcus did to you. Men like that give the rest of us a bad name. His expression was surprisingly sincere. You ever need anything? You call me. Anyone who can walk into this room and speak truth to power deserves respect. Lauren didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. Outside, the sun was high and bright, a beautiful day that felt wrong, given what had just transpired. Adrian's hand found the small of her back as they walked to the SUV, a gesture that was becoming familiar. You did well in there, he said quietly. I was terrified. So was I, but you didn't show it. That matters. They climbed into the vehicle, Sal and Tommy flanking them. As they pulled away from the warehouse, Lauren finally asked the question that had been burning in her mind. What happens now? Adrian pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. Now, we set the trap. Marcus will hear within the hour that the Calabreses have cut him loose. He'll panic, try to make a move before he loses his window. And when he does, we'll be waiting. Not we. Me. Adrian's voice was firm. You're going back to the penthouse with Sal and Tommy. You stay there until this is over. Adrian, no arguments. Vincent was right. You've got steel in you. You proved that today. But I'm not letting you anywhere near Marcus when this goes down. Lauren wanted to argue, to insist that she had a right to face her abuser. But the truth was, she didn't want to see Marcus again, didn't want to hear his voice or look into his eyes or remember what it felt like to be completely powerless. Okay, she said softly. Adrian looked surprised. Just like that? Just like that? She met his eyes. But promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come back. I promise. The penthouse was exactly as they'd left it that morning, frozen in time while the world shifted around them. Sal and Tommy did a sweep of the apartment, checking locks and windows, then positioned themselves at strategic points. Lauren stood at the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, Marcus was getting the news that he was on his own. Somewhere down there, Adrian was preparing to do something she couldn't let herself think about too closely. Her new phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Stay strong. This will be over soon. AM. She typed back quickly. Be safe. The response came immediately. Always. Hours crawled by. Lauren tried to eat, couldn't. Tried to read, couldn't focus. Sal offered her coffee, whiskey, anything to help pass the time. She declined it all. Finally, as the sun started to set, painting the city in shades of orange and red, her phone rang. Adrian's voice was rough. It's done. 2 words, and Lauren's entire body went weak with relief. Are you okay? I'm fine. He's not. She didn't ask for details. Didn't want to know exactly how it had ended, what Adrian had done, whether Marcus had suffered. All she wanted to know was that it was over. Where are you? She asked. Cleaning up. I'll be there in an hour. Okay. Lauren? Yeah? You're free now. You understand that? You're actually free. The words broke something open in her chest, and suddenly she was crying, great heaving sobs that she couldn't control. Sal appeared at her side, awkward but trying to help, and she waved him away. She cried for the woman in the river, for the 3 years she'd lost hiding in shelters and safe houses. For every time Marcus's hands had found her throat, his fists had found her ribs. His words had found the soft parts of her that never quite healed. She cried until there was nothing left,
until she was empty and exhausted and somehow lighter than she'd been in years. When Adrian finally arrived, she was curled up on the couch, wrapped in a blanket Tommy had found somewhere. He looked tired, a shadow of stubble on his jaw, something dark on his collar that might have been blood. He stopped in the doorway, taking her in. "You okay?" "Ask me again tomorrow." A small smile flickered across his face. He crossed to the couch, sitting down beside her but leaving space between them. For what it's worth, it was quick. He didn't suffer. "You're lying." "Yeah, I am." The honesty was almost worse than the lie. "But he's gone, Lauren. He's never coming back." She turned to look at him, this man who'd killed for her, who'd traded $20 million a year for her safety, who looked at her like she was worth protecting. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." She reached for his hand, the same way he'd reached for hers earlier. "You gave me my life back." Adrian's fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and real. "You never lost it. You were always strong enough to take it back yourself. I just helped clear the path." They sat like that as darkness fell over the city, two broken people who'd somehow found each other in the middle of chaos. Lauren knew there would be consequences, knew that Detective Russo would ask questions, that the Calabreses would expect Adrian to honor his end of the deal, that nothing in this world came without a price. But tonight, for the first time in years, she felt safe, and that was enough. Lauren woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was, and panic seized her chest before memory flooded back. The penthouse. Adrian's safe house. Marcus was dead. She sat up slowly, her body aching like she'd been in a fight. Maybe she had been, in a way. 3 years of running, 6 months of hiding, and now it was over. She found Adrian in the kitchen, still wearing yesterday's clothes, staring at his phone with an expression that made her stomach drop. "What's wrong?" He looked up, and there were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept at all. "Detective Russo, he's asking questions about a body that washed up near the docks this morning." Lauren's breath caught. "Marcus?" "What's left of him?" Adrian set his phone down. "The current carried him farther than we expected. Russo knows it's connected to me, but he can't prove it." "Will he try?" "He's a cop. It's his job to try." Adrian poured coffee into a second mug and handed it to her. "But he's also practical. Marcus worked for the Calabreses, which makes this organized crime business, which means Russo's bosses will tell him to back off before he starts a war nobody wants." Lauren wrapped her hands around the warm mug, trying to steady herself. "I should feel something, shouldn't I? Relief or guilt or something, but I just feel empty." "That's normal. Trauma doesn't resolve itself overnight just because the threat is gone." He leaned against the counter, studying her. "You should talk to someone, your therapist or someone who specializes in what? Helping people process their boyfriend's murder? In helping survivors move forward." His voice was gentle. "You survived, Lauren. But surviving isn't the same as healing." She knew he was right. The rational part of her brain understood that Marcus's death didn't erase 3 years of abuse, didn't magically fix the parts of her that were broken. But there was also a primitive satisfaction in knowing he couldn't hurt her anymore, couldn't hurt anyone anymore. "I want to see Luca," she said suddenly. Adrian's expression softened. "He's been asking about you. I told him you were sick, that you needed rest." "Can we go back to the estate? Is that what you want? You could stay here, take some time away." "No." The word came out firm. "I want to go home." Something flickered in Adrian's eyes at the word home, but he just nodded. "I'll have Marco bring the car around." The drive back to the estate felt surreal, like returning to a life that belonged to someone else. But when they pulled through the gates and Lauren saw Luca's face pressed against the front window, everything snapped back into focus. She was barely out of the SUV before he came running, throwing himself into her arms with the kind of abandon only children could manage. "Miss Lauren, you're back. Daddy said you were sick, but I knew you'd come back because you always come back, and I made you a picture, and Mrs. Maria said you'd like it, and hey, slow down." Lauren laughed, the sound surprising her. "Let me breathe, buddy." But she held him tight anyway, breathing in the little boy's smell of him, sugar and grass, and something indefinably sweet. This was real. This was what mattered. Adrian watched them from a few feet away, something complicated crossing his face before he masked it. "Luca, Why don't you show Miss Lauren your picture? I need to make some calls. Luca grabbed her hand and dragged her inside, chattering nonstop about everything she'd missed in the past day and a half. His room was exactly as she'd left it, toys scattered across the floor, books piled on his nightstand. The picture he'd made was taped to his wall, a crayon drawing of 3 people labeled Daddy, Miss Lauren, and me, standing in front of a house. They were all holding hands. Lauren's throat tightened. It's beautiful. We're a family, Luca said matter-of-factly. Mrs. Maria said families take care of each other. You take care of me, and Daddy takes care of you, so that makes us a family. Out of the mouths of children. Lauren crouched down to his level. You're right. We do take care of each other. So you won't leave, even though you were sick? No, buddy. I'm not leaving. His smile could have powered the sun. They fell back into routine over the next few days, and the normalcy of it was both comforting and disorienting. Lauren woke up, got Luca ready for the day, supervised his lessons, played in the garden. Everything exactly as it had been before her world turned upside down, except it wasn't the same. She caught Adrian watching her sometimes, his expression unreadable. Sal and Tommy were now permanent fixtures around the estate, their presence a constant reminder that normal was relative. And Lauren herself felt different, like she'd shed a skin she didn't know she'd been wearing. A week after Marcus's death, Detective Russo showed up at the estate unannounced. Maria found Lauren in the library with Luca, reading through a science book about planets. Miss Hayes, there's a detective here to see you. Mr. Moretti is in a meeting, but it's fine. Lauren stood, smoothing her shirt. Luca, stay here and read about Jupiter, okay? I'll be right back. Russo waited in the front sitting room, looking out of place among the expensive furniture and artwork. He turned when she entered, and his expression was carefully neutral. Miss Hayes, sorry to drop by without notice. Detective, Lauren kept her voice level. What can I do for you? I wanted to ask you some questions about Marcus Vance. Her heart kicked into a higher gear, but she'd learned to hide fear well. I don't know anyone by that name. Really? Because my investigation suggests you were in a relationship with him for 2 years, that you filed multiple police reports, spent time in a domestic violence shelter, and had a restraining order that was never enforced. That was a different life. I left it behind. Russo studied her. Marcus's body was found 3 days ago. Preliminary autopsy suggests he was killed execution style, then dumped in the river. Does that mean anything to you? Should it? You tell me. The timing seems convenient. You start working for Adrian Moretti, Marcus works for Moretti's enemies, and now Marcus is dead. He paused. I don't believe in coincidences. Neither do I. Lauren met his eyes. But I also don't know anything about Marcus's death. I haven't seen him in 3 years. The shelter you stayed at, they keep records. I talked to your caseworker. She said Marcus threatened to kill you if he ever found you. He did threaten that, multiple times. So you had motive. Detective, are you accusing me of something? Russo sighed, running a hand through his hair. No, honestly, I don't think you killed Marcus, but I think you know who did, and I think you're protecting them. I don't know what you're talking about. Adrian Moretti is a dangerous man. I know you think he's protecting you, and maybe he is. But men like him don't do favors without expecting something in return. Whatever debt you think you owe him, I don't owe him anything. The words came out sharper than she intended. Mr. Moretti has been nothing but professional. He's a good father to his son, and that's the only relationship I have with him. Is that what you're telling yourself? Russo's voice softened. Miss Hayes, Lauren, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen this pattern before. Women who think they're safe because they've traded one dangerous man for another. It never ends well. I'm not trading anything. I'm just trying to live my life. Are you? He pulled out a folder, set it on the table between them. I did some digging. You know what I found? Nothing. No employment history before the shelter, no educational records past high school, no family contacts. It's like you didn't exist before you were 22 years old. Lauren's stomach twisted. People have a right to privacy. They do, but they also have a right to the truth. Russo tapped the folder. I think you're running from more than just Marcus. I think there's something in your past that you're terrified of people finding out, and I think Adrian Moretti knows what it is. You're wrong. Then prove it. Talk to me. Let me help you. I don't need help.
Lauren stood, her hands shaking slightly. If you're not here to arrest me, I'd like you to leave.
Russo stood slowly, pocketing the folder. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. Not from you, not from anyone. Everyone needs protection, Miss Hayes. The question is whether you're getting it from the right people. He moved toward the door, then paused. When this all falls apart, and it will, you call me. Day or night. I meant what I said before. After he left, Lauren stood in the empty sitting room, her heart racing. The folder was still on the table. She shouldn't look. Whatever Russo had found, whatever he thought he knew, it didn't matter. She looked anyway. Inside were copies of police reports, medical records, photographs. Her face bruised and swollen, her arm in a cast, x-rays showing broken ribs. Evidence of every time Marcus had hurt her, cataloged and documented. But underneath those was something else. A birth certificate for Lauren Marie Hayes, except the birth date was wrong. Off by 3 years. And beneath that, a death certificate. Same name, same birth date as the certificate. Died in a car accident at age 19. Lauren's hands went numb. How had Russo found this? How much did he actually know? Interesting reading? She spun around to find Adrian in the doorway, his expression unreadable. How long have you been standing there? Long enough. He moved into the room, glancing at the papers spread across the table. Russo's thorough, I'll give him that. Did you know? Her voice came out barely a whisper. About the real Lauren Hayes? I knew you were using a borrowed identity. I didn't know the details until recently. Adrian picked up the death certificate, studying it. Smart move, actually. Harder to trace a dead person than a fake one. I didn't steal her identity. The shelter. They helped me. They said it was safer to become someone who couldn't be found. I'm not judging you. He set the paper down. I'm just trying to understand who you really are. I don't know anymore. Lauren sank into a chair. I've been so many people. The girl before Marcus, the woman during, the survivor after. Lauren Hayes. I don't know which one is real. Adrian crouched in front of her chair, the same way he had in the penthouse. What's your real name? She hadn't said it out loud in 3 years. Hadn't let herself even think it, because thinking it made it real, made the past real. Emma, she whispered. Emma Clark. Emma. He tested the name, and something about the way he said it made her chest ache. Do you want me to call you that? No. Emma Clark is dead. She died the first time Marcus put his hands on her. I'm Lauren now. I want to stay Lauren. Okay. He said it simply, accepting. Then you're Lauren. Russo won't let this go. He's going to keep digging until he finds out everything. Let him dig. He can't prove anything that matters. Adrian stood, offering her his hand. And if he gets too close, I'll handle it. By handle, you mean? I'll have a conversation with his captain about jurisdictional priorities. Nothing dramatic. Russo's a good cop, but he's also ambitious. He won't push if it means derailing his career. Lauren took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. They stood close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his gray eyes, could smell his cologne mixed with coffee. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really? Not the practiced answer about protection and responsibility. The real reason. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because when I look at you, I see someone who's survived things that should have broken them. Someone who wakes up every day and chooses to keep going, to take care of my son, to be gentle in a world that's been nothing but cruel to them. And he stopped, jaw tightening. I want to be the reason you don't have to be afraid anymore. The honesty in his words stole her breath. Adrian, you don't have to say anything. I know this is complicated. I know I'm not good, Lauren. I've done things that would make you run if you knew the details. But when it comes to you, she kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't thought through. She just reached up and pressed her lips to his, cutting off whatever he was about to say. For a heartbeat, he went still. Then his hands came up to frame her face, gentle despite the calluses, and he kissed her back. It was nothing like kissing Marcus. There was no demand in it, no ownership, just a question being asked and answered, careful and tentative and real. When they pulled apart, Adrian's eyes were dark. We shouldn't. I know. You work for me. The power dynamic. I know. Lauren's hands were shaking, but I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of denying myself anything good because I'm scared it'll turn bad. And you're good to me. You make me feel safe. Safe is the last thing I am. Maybe. But you make me feel like I could be safe. Like I could be something more than just a survivor. She stepped back, needing space to think. I'm not saying we should. I don't even know what this is. But I'm tired of pretending there's nothing here. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked unsure. If we do this, if we're honest about whatever this is, it changes everything. Your job, your position in this house, how people see you. How would they see me? As mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it sent heat through her veins. As someone under my protection, yes, but also as someone I care about. Someone who matters to me beyond your role as Luca's nanny. Would that be so terrible? In my world, it makes you a target. Anyone who wants to hurt me will see you as a weakness to exploit. I'm already a target. Marcus proved that. Lauren moved closer again. At least this way I'm choosing it. I'm choosing you instead of just being thrown into your orbit by circumstance. You're sure? No. She laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. I'm terrified, but I'm sure about this. I don't want to run anymore. I don't want to hide. And I don't want to pretend that when you look at me, it doesn't make me feel things I haven't felt in years. Adrian's hand found hers, fingers lacing together. We take this slow, one step at a time. And the moment you want out, you say the word. What about Luca? We keep it separate from him until we know what this is. He doesn't need confusion or uncertainty. Adrian's thumb brushed across her knuckles. But Lauren, I need you to understand, I'm not good at relationships. I was barely adequate at marriage, and that was with someone who understood my world. You deserve better than what I can offer. Let me decide what I deserve. A small smile tugged at his mouth. Stubborn. You have no idea. The sound of small footsteps in the hallway made them spring apart. Luca appeared in the doorway, clutching his Jupiter book. Miss Lauren, you said you'd be right back, but it's been forever and I have questions about the Great Red Spot. Sorry, buddy. Lauren's face felt hot. I got distracted. Come on, let's go figure out Jupiter. She left Adrian in the sitting room, Russo's folder still spread across the table like evidence of a crime. As she walked away, she felt his eyes on her, felt the weight of what they'd just acknowledged. Her life had been simple a week ago, quiet, safe in its predictability. Now it was anything but. That night, after Luca was asleep, Lauren found herself unable to settle. She wandered through the house, too wired to sleep, too tired to do anything productive. She ended up in the garden, sitting on the stone bench where she'd watched Luca play 1,000 times. The garden at night was different. Shadows turned familiar shapes strange. The fountain's burbling sounded louder, almost ominous. Can't sleep? Lauren didn't jump this time. She was getting used to Adrian appearing out of nowhere. Too much in my head. He sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Want to talk about it? I keep thinking about that woman. The one Marcus killed. Lauren wrapped her arms around herself. She died because of me. Because he was looking for me. She died because Marcus was a psychopath who valued his ego over human life. That's not on you, isn't it? If I had just, I don't know, stayed with him or found a better way to leave or... Stop. Adrian's voice was firm. You're not responsible for his actions. You left an abusive relationship. That's the only thing you did, and it was the right thing. Everything that happened after, that's on him. I know that rationally, but rationally and emotionally are different things. Yeah, they are. He was quiet for a moment. My wife, Elena. She died because I was too focused on business to see a threat until it was too late. Rival family, grudge I didn't take seriously enough. They put a bomb in her car. Lauren turned to look at him. I'm sorry. I spent 2 years blaming myself, thinking if I'd been smarter, more careful, more present, I could have saved her. His jaw tightened. My therapist, yes, I have a therapist, finally got through to me that I couldn't have known, that you can't protect people from every possible threat, no matter how hard you try. Do you believe that now? Most days, some days I still wake up thinking about all the things I could have done differently. He looked at her. But I've learned that guilt is useless unless it drives you to be better. Otherwise, it's just another way to hurt yourself. Is that what you're doing? Trying to be better? With Luca, yes. With you. He stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. With you, I'm trying not to repeat my mistakes, trying to actually see the threats before they become tragedies. Is that all I am? A potential tragedy to prevent? No. The word was immediate, definite. I don't have words for what you are, but it's not that. They sat in comfortable silence, the night settling around them. Lauren found herself leaning into Adrian's warmth without consciously deciding to, and his arm came around her shoulders like it belonged there. I want to go back to school, she said suddenly. Yeah? I had 1 year of college before I met Marcus, psychology major. I wanted to work with trauma survivors, help people who'd been through what I went through. She laughed bitterly. Ironic, considering I ended up becoming the trauma survivor. It's not ironic. It makes sense. You wanted to help people like you. Past tense. Now I don't know if I'm qualified to help anyone. You're more qualified than most therapists with fancy degrees. You've lived it. Adrian's hand rubbed slow circles on her shoulder. If you want to go back to school, do it. I'll help however I can. Just like that? Just like that. Lauren tilted her head to look up at him. Why are you so good to me? I'm not good. I'm selfish. His eyes met hers. I want you to stay. I want you to be happy here. If helping you achieve your goals makes that happen, then it benefits me too. That's not selfish. That's just, what? Kind of wonderful. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she might break. Lauren kissed him back, letting herself sink into it, into him, into the possibility that maybe this could be something real. When they pulled apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. We should go inside. It's late. I don't want to. Neither do I. But if I keep touching you, I'm going to want more. And we said slow. We did say that. Lauren stood reluctantly. Doesn't mean I like it. His laugh was low and warm. Good to know. They walked back to the house together, not touching, but close enough that Lauren could feel the heat of him. At the door to her room, Adrian paused. Sleep well, Lauren. You too, Adrian. She watched him continue down the hallway to his own suite, then closed her door and leaned against it. Her heart was racing, her skin felt too tight, and somewhere in her chest was a feeling she barely recognized. Hope. The next morning brought Detective Russo back, this time with a warrant. He showed up at 7, grim-faced and determined, with 2 uniformed officers flanking him. Adrian met them at the door, already dressed for the day. Detective, what's this about? We have a warrant to search the premises in connection with the murder of Marcus Vance. Russo handed over the paperwork. You're welcome to have your lawyer present. My lawyer's on his way. Adrian's voice was ice. But you should know you won't find anything. We'll see about that. Lauren watched from the top of the stairs as police filed through the house, opening drawers, checking closets, photographing rooms. Luca was still asleep, thank God, but it was only a matter of time before the commotion woke him. She went to his room and found him sitting up in bed, eyes wide. What's happening? Why are there so many people? The police are here to check some things. It's okay, buddy. Nothing to worry about. Lauren tried to keep her voice calm. How about we have breakfast in your room today? Would that be fun? Like a picnic? Exactly like a picnic. She got him settled with breakfast and cartoons, then went to find Adrian. He was in his study with a man in an expensive suit, his lawyer, presumably, watching the police tear through his office. They won't find anything, the lawyer was saying. You were thorough. I always am. Adrian looked up as Lauren entered. You should stay with Luca. Keep him away from this. I am. I just wanted to check, are we okay? Define okay. Are they going to arrest you? Not unless they find evidence, which they won't. His certainty should have been comforting. Instead, it made Lauren wonder what he'd done to be so confident. The search took 4 hours. They went through every room, every drawer, every corner of the estate. They found nothing, no weapons, no evidence, no connection to Marcus's death. Russo looked frustrated when he finally came to find Adrian. You're clean, too clean. I run a legitimate business, detective. I don't know what you expected to find. I expected to find proof that you killed Marcus Vance, or had him killed, but it's almost like someone went through this entire house and sanitized it before we got here. That would require knowing you were coming with a warrant. Are you suggesting someone in your department tipped me off? Russo's jaw tightened. I'm suggesting you have friends in places you shouldn't, and eventually that's going to catch up to you. I'll take my chances. After the police left, the house felt violated. Lauren helped Maria and the other staff put things back in order, trying to restore some sense of normalcy. That evening, with Luca finally calm and sleeping, she found Adrian on the roof terrace, smoking a cigarette she hadn't known he smoked. "Those will kill you," she said, sitting beside him. "A lot of things will kill me. At least these I'm choosing." But he stubbed it out anyway. "I'm sorry about today. I should have warned you that Russo wouldn't let this go easily." "Did you have someone tip you off? About the warrant?" Adrian looked at her for a long moment. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes." "Then yes. I have a contact in the precinct who warned me 2 days ago. I had my people go through the house and remove anything remotely questionable." "Anything like what? Like the gun I used to kill Marcus? Like the clothes I was wearing that night? Like security footage that would prove I wasn't where I claimed to be?" He said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing grocery lists. "Like I said, I'm thorough." Lauren should have been horrified, should have run screaming from a man who could talk about murder evidence so casually. But all she felt was grateful, because whatever Adrian had done, however he'd done it for her. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me for this. Thank me for keeping you safe, for protecting Luca, for any of a dozen other things. But don't thank me for being good at covering up murders." "Why not?" "Because it's not something to be grateful for. It's what I am, what I've always been." He turned to face her fully. "This is who I am, Lauren. This is my world. Lawyers who know how to make evidence disappear, cops on my payroll, bodies in rivers. If we're going to do this, whatever this is, you need to understand what you're getting into." "I understand. Do you?" "Because it's one thing to know intellectually that I'm a criminal. It's another to see it in action, to watch me manipulate the justice system and get away with it. You protected me. You ended a threat that would have haunted me for the rest of my life. I don't care what legal gymnastics you had to do to make that happen." Lauren took his hand. "I told you before, I'm not asking you to be good. I'm asking you to be human, and humans protect the people they care about. Even if it means breaking every rule that exists? Especially then." Adrian pulled her close, and she went willingly, tucking herself against his chest. His heartbeat was steady under her ear, solid and real. "You scare me," he said softly. "Why?" "Because I want things with you that I haven't wanted in years. And wanting things makes you vulnerable, makes you weak. Or it makes you strong." Lauren tilted her head back to look at him. "Love isn't weakness, Adrian. Fear of love is." "Who said anything about love?" She smiled. "No one. Yet." He kissed her then, deeper than before, and Lauren felt something shift between them. This wasn't just attraction or gratitude or trauma bonding. This was the beginning of something that could destroy them both or save them. And for the first time in years, Lauren was willing to take that risk. 3 months after Marcus's body washed up in the river, Lauren stopped looking over her shoulder every time she left the house. It wasn't a conscious decision, more like waking up one morning and realizing the knot in her stomach had loosened. The hypervigilance that had become her default setting started to fade, replaced by something that felt dangerously close to peace. She was in the garden with Luca, helping him plant tomatoes in the raised beds Adrian had built, when she felt it. The absence of fear like a presence all its own. "Miss Lauren, you're not paying attention." Luca's dirt-covered hand waved in front of her face. "I asked if tomatoes can grow in winter." "Sorry, buddy. What did you say?" "Tomatoes. Winter. Can they?" "Not outside, but we could try growing them in the greenhouse if you want." Luca's face lit up. "Really? Can we start today? We'll need to ask your dad about supplies, but I don't see why not." Adrian had been spending more time at home lately. Less late-night meetings, fewer days where he left at dawn and didn't return until Luca was asleep. He claimed it was because things with the Calabrese family had stabilized, that the waterfront deal was running smoothly. Lauren suspected it had more to do with the way he'd started looking at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. They'd been careful around Luca. No kissing where he could see, no obvious displays of affection. But there were small things. Adrian's hand on her back as they walked through the house, the way he sat closer to her at dinner, the goodnight texts that had become a ritual. It was terrifying and wonderful, and completely unlike anything Lauren had experienced before. That evening, after Luca was in bed, she found Adrian in his study going through paperwork. He looked up when she entered, and the smile that crossed his face was private, just for her. "Hey, Luca asleep?" Out like a light. All that gardening wore him out. She closed the door behind her and leaned against it. "Can we talk?" That's never a good opening. But he set down his pen, giving her his full attention. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I've been thinking about something Dr. Chen said." Lauren had started therapy again 2 weeks after Marcus died. Adrian had offered to pay for it, and for once, she'd swallowed her pride and accepted. Dr. Chen had been unsurprised to hear from her, had simply scheduled appointments and picked up where they'd left off. "What did she say?" Adrian asked. "That I need to stop defining myself by my trauma. That I survived Marcus, but I'm still letting him control my life by refusing to move forward." Lauren pushed off the door, moving closer. "She's right. I've spent 3 years in survival mode, and I don't know how to be anything else. So what do you want to do about it?" "I enrolled in classes, night school at the community college. I'm going to finish my degree." Adrian's expression shifted into something Lauren was learning to recognize as pride. That's good. Really good. When do you start?" "Next month, which means I won't be able to work the same hours. I'll need to cut back, maybe just mornings with Luca, and I know that's not ideal for you, so if you need to hire someone else..." "Stop." He stood, rounding the desk to stand in front of her. "I'm not hiring someone else. We'll make it work. Maria can cover evenings, or I can adjust my schedule. Whatever you need." "You do that?" "Lauren, I want you to have a life outside this house. I want you to have dreams that don't involve taking care of other people." His hand came up to cup her face. "I want you to be more than just someone who survived." She kissed him, and this time there was no hesitation, no careful distance. His arms came around her, pulling her close, and Lauren let herself fall into it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "We should tell Luca," he said quietly. "Tell him what?" "That we're, whatever this is, that it's not just professional anymore." He pulled back to look at her. "He's smart. He's going to figure it out eventually. Better he hears it from us." Lauren's stomach flipped. What if he doesn't understand? What if it confuses him or makes him think I'm trying to replace his mother? He won't think that. Elena's been gone for 4 years. He barely remembers her. Adrian's voice was gentle. "And he loves you. He's been asking me when you're going to move out of the staff quarters and into the main house like a real family member." "He said that?" 2 weeks ago. "I told him you had your own space and liked it that way. But..." He hesitated. "If you wanted to move upstairs, there's a suite next to mine. It's bigger than your current room, has its own bathroom, better view." "You're asking me to move in with you?" "I'm offering you a better living situation. What you do with it is up to you." Lauren's head was spinning. A month ago, she'd been hiding from her past, convinced she'd never be anything more than someone else's victim. Now she was enrolled in college and being offered a place in Adrian Moretti's life that went beyond employee. "Can I think about it?" "Take all the time you need." He kissed her forehead. "But Lauren, whatever you decide about the room, about us, I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me now." Is that a threat or a promise? Both. They told Luca the next morning over pancakes. Lauren had spent the whole night rehearsing what to say, but Adrian cut straight to it. "Luca, Miss Lauren and I need to talk to you about something." Luca looked up from his plate, syrup on his chin. "Am I in trouble?" "No, buddy, nothing like that." Adrian glanced at Lauren, and she nodded for him to continue. "You know how Miss Lauren takes care of you, and I work to take care of both of you?" "Uh-huh." "Well, Miss Lauren and I have become close, more than just we care about each other, as more than just people who work together." Luca's forehead scrunched up in confusion. "Like you're friends?" "Like we're dating," Lauren said, deciding directness was better than dancing around it. "Like how grown-ups sometimes like each other in a special way." "Oh." Luca processed this for a moment, then shrugged. "Okay." Adrian and Lauren exchanged a look. That was it? Just okay? "You're not upset?" Adrian asked. "Why would I be upset? Mrs. Maria said you needed someone to make you smile more, and Miss Lauren makes you smile." Luca went back to his pancakes like he'd just commented on the weather. "Does this mean she's staying forever?" Lauren's throat tightened. "If you want me to." "Duh. Your family." He said it with the absolute certainty only children possessed. Can I have more pancakes? Just like that, it was settled. No drama, no tears, no complicated emotions. Just a 6-year-old simple acceptance that the people he loved should be together. Lauren caught Adrian's eye across the table and saw her own wonder reflected back. Maybe this could actually work. The next few weeks fell into a new rhythm. Lauren moved into the suite upstairs, though she kept most of her belongings in her old room, not quite ready to fully commit. She started her classes, Introduction to Psychology, English Composition, Statistics, and found that her brain remembered how to be a student. Adrian adjusted his schedule to be home for dinner most nights. They'd eat together, the three of them, then Lauren would head to class while Adrian handled bedtime. It felt domestic in a way that should have scared her, but didn't. Dr. Chen seemed pleased with her progress. "You're building a life," she said during one session. "Not just surviving, but actually living. How does that feel?" "Terrifying," Lauren admitted. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong." "That's normal. Your brain has been in threat detection mode for so long it doesn't know how to relax." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "But Lauren, you need to start trusting that good things can last. Not everything ends in disaster. In my experience, most things do. That's because your experience has been shaped by trauma, but you're creating new experiences now. Let them reshape you." It was easier said than done. But Lauren tried. She tried when Adrian reached for her hand at dinner. She tried when Luca asked her to read him bedtime stories. She tried when she aced her first psychology exam and Adrian took her out to celebrate. She was trying the night Detective Russo showed up at the estate again, this time without a warrant, but with news that made Lauren's blood run cold. "There's been a development in the Marcus Vance case," he said, standing in the foyer with rain dripping from his coat. "Can we talk privately?" Adrian's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "My study." They went upstairs, Lauren trailing behind because she couldn't not know what Russo had found. The detective waited until the door was closed before speaking. Marcus's employer, the Calabrese family, they're claiming he stole from them. Embezzled funds, cooked books, the works. Russo pulled out a file folder. "They're cooperating with the FBI investigation, handing over evidence that makes Marcus look dirty." "And?" Adrian's voice was neutral. "And it conveniently gives them a motive for his murder that has nothing to do with Miss Hayes. Makes it look like internal family business, settling accounts." Russo's eyes were sharp. "Funny how that worked out." "Funny," Adrian agreed. "You bought them off, the Calabreses. Whatever deal you made, part of it was them taking the fall for Marcus's murder." "That's a serious accusation, Detective. Do you have proof?" "No. Which is why I'm here instead of the DA." Russo looked at Lauren. "I want you to understand what you're involved in. Adrian Moretti just framed an entire crime family for murder, and they're going along with it because whatever he gave them was worth more than one of their own people. They're not taking the fall," Adrian said calmly. "They're just admitting Marcus was a liability, which he was. The embezzlement is real. I had my people verify it before suggesting they hand it over to the FBI. Marcus was stealing from them for months." "How convenient that you discovered that." "I'm thorough. You know that." Russo's hands clenched into fists. "This is obstruction of justice, conspiracy, evidence tampering. This is good detective work leading to the real story behind Marcus Vance's death. He stole from dangerous people, and they killed him for it. Happens every day in this city." Adrian moved to the door, opening it in clear dismissal. "Unless you have actual evidence of wrongdoing, I think we're done here." "We're not done, not by a long shot." "Then by all means, keep investigating. But Detective," Adrian's voice went cold, "you might want to consider whether pursuing this case is really worth what it'll cost you." It was a threat, barely veiled. Russo heard it loud and clear. "You can't buy everyone," he said. "No, but I can buy enough people to make your life very difficult." Adrian's expression didn't change. "I'm trying to do you a favor here, Russo. You're a good cop. Don't throw your career away on a case you can't win." Russo looked at Lauren one more time. "Last chance. You want out, I can help you. Witness protection, new identity, new city. You'd be free of all of this." Lauren thought about it, really thought about it. A month ago, she might have said yes, might have run again, started over somewhere new where nobody knew Emma Clark or Lauren Hayes or any of the versions of herself she'd been. But then she thought about Luca's laugh when she made silly voices reading stories, about the way Adrian looked at her like she was the only solid thing in his shifting world, about her classes and her dreams and the life she was building here. I'm already free, she said quietly. For the first time in my life. I'm exactly where I want to be. Russo shook his head. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. After he left, Lauren and Adrian stood in the study, the weight of what had almost happened hanging between them. He's not going to stop, Lauren said. He's going to keep coming after you. Let him. He can't prove anything that matters. What if he can? What if he finds something you missed? I don't miss things. Adrian pulled her close. And even if he did, even if this all came crashing down tomorrow, I'd do it again. Every bit of it. For you. That's not romantic. That's insane. Same thing sometimes. Lauren buried her face in his chest, breathing in the scent of him, expensive cologne and coffee and something underneath that was just Adrian. I'm scared. I know. Not of you. Not even of Russo or the Calabreses or any of it. I'm scared that I'm too happy. That I've forgotten how to protect myself. Being happy doesn't mean you're unprotected. It just means you're living instead of hiding. His arms tightened around her. And Lauren, you deserve to live. After everything you've survived, you deserve every single moment of happiness you can grab. She tilted her head up to kiss him, and it was different from all the other kisses. Deeper, more certain. Like sealing a promise neither of them had spoken out loud. When they pulled apart, Adrian's eyes were dark with something Lauren was learning to recognize as love, even if neither of them had said the word yet. Move in with me, he said. Not just the room upstairs. Actually move in. Bring all your things. Take up space. Make this place feel like home. Adrian, I know it's fast. I know we're probably doing this all wrong. But I'm tired of waiting for the right time or the right circumstances. I want you here with me and Luca as part of this family, not as an employee, as mine. There was that possessiveness again, the edge in his voice that should have triggered every warning bell Lauren had. But it didn't feel like Marcus's ownership, the kind that suffocated and controlled. This felt like Adrian staking a claim and offering himself in return, like he was hers as much as she was his. Okay, she whispered. Yeah? Yeah. But Adrian, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if I ever feel trapped, if this ever starts to feel like I'm back in that place with Marcus, you'll let me go. No questions, no arguments. You'll just let me walk away. Adrian's jaw tightened. That's not going to happen. Promise me anyway. He looked at her for a long moment, and Lauren saw the war happening behind his eyes. The desire to possess versus the desire to protect, control versus care. I promise, he said, finally. If you ever want to leave, I won't stop you. But Lauren, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you never want to. I'm counting on it. They moved her things the next day, Luca helping with the books and smaller boxes, excited to have Lauren officially part of the family. The room that had felt too big suddenly felt exactly right, with her clothes in the closet and her photos on the dresser and Adrian's room just down the hall. That night, Lauren stood at the window of her new room, looking out at the gardens below. Behind her, she could hear Adrian putting Luca to bed, his deep voice reading a story about dragons and knights. A year ago, she'd been hiding in a shelter, too scared to use her real name. 6 months ago, she'd taken this job thinking it would be temporary, just until she could figure out what came next. Now she was here, in a life she hadn't planned but was choosing anyway. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Chen. How are you feeling about the move? Lauren thought about it, then typed back. Scared. But good scared. The kind that means I'm actually living. That's all any of us can do. Live and hope it's enough. It wasn't particularly profound advice, but it settled something in Lauren's chest. She was living. Not perfectly, not without fear, but living nonetheless. Adrian appeared in the doorway, Luca finally asleep. Hey, you okay? Yeah, just thinking. About? About how weird it is that the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best thing that ever happened to me. She turned to face him. Is that messed up? Probably, but most good things come from messy places. He crossed to her, gathering her into his arms. You know what I was thinking about? What? That time in the library when we first really talked. You were so determined to keep me at arm's length. I was terrified of you. I know, and now I'm terrified with you. There's a difference. Adrian laughed, the sound warm and real. I'll take it. They stood like that for a while, wrapped up in each other, until Lauren's phone buzzed again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize. She opened it, then froze. Congratulations on your freedom. Marcus got what he deserved. V. Calabrese. What is it? Adrian asked, feeling her tense. She showed him the message. His expression went dark. He's trying to establish a connection, reminding you that you owe him. Do I? Owe him? No, I paid that debt when I gave him the waterfront. This is just Vincent being Vincent, keeping his fingers in every pie. Adrian took her phone, deleted the message. Ignore it. What if I can't? What if he decides to use me as leverage against you? Then I'll handle it, same way I handled Marcus. You can't just kill everyone who's a problem, Adrian. Watch me. He said it with a straight face, and Lauren couldn't tell if he was joking. That should have scared her. Maybe it did, a little. But it also made her feel safe in a way nothing else could. The semester continued. Lauren aced her classes, finding that years of surviving trauma had given her insight into human psychology textbooks couldn't teach. She wrote papers about resilience and recovery, about the neuroscience of fear and the psychology of abuse. Her professors praised her work. One suggested she consider graduate school, maybe even a doctorate. You have a natural understanding of trauma, Professor Williams said after class one evening. Have you thought about specializing in it? I've thought about it, Lauren admitted, but I don't know if I want to spend my career immersed in other people's pain. That's fair. But consider this. Who better to help survivors than someone who survived? The professor smiled. Just think about it. Lauren did think about it. She thought about it on the drive home, during dinner with Adrian and Luca, while helping with homework and giving baths. She was still thinking about it when Adrian came to her room that night, after Luca was asleep and the house was quiet. You're somewhere else, he said, sitting beside her on the bed. Where? Thinking about the future, about what I want to do with my degree once I have it. And what do you want? I think I want to work with domestic violence survivors, help them rebuild the way the shelter helped me. She looked at him. Would that be weird, given your profession? Adrian was quiet for a moment. It would be ironic, but no, not weird. Actually, I think it's perfect. Yeah? You'd be good at it. You understand what they're going through, but you also know what's possible on the other side. He took her hand. And Lauren, if that's what you want to do, I'll support it, however I can. Even if it means dealing with cops and social workers who might ask questions about you? Even then. You'd really let me bring that kind of scrutiny into your life? You're already in my life. Everything else is just details. He pulled her close. Besides, it might be good for me. Remind me that not everything has to be solved with violence. Is that what I do? Remind you to be human? Every day. Lauren kissed him, and it turned into something more, the kind of slow, careful intimacy she was learning to trust. Afterward, lying in Adrian's arms with moonlight streaming through the windows, she felt something shift into place. This was her life now. Not the one she'd planned, not the one she'd dreamed about before Marcus destroyed her, but something new. Something built from broken pieces that somehow fit together better than the original ever had. 6 months later, Lauren finished her first year of college with a 4.0 GPA. Adrian threw her a small party, just family and a few close friends. Luca made her a card covered in glitter and misspelled congratulations. Maria baked a cake that was too sweet but perfect anyway. Sal and Tommy stood guard at the edges of the room, still her constant shadows even though the threat was long gone. She'd gotten used to them, even grown fond of Tommy's terrible jokes and Sal's rare smiles. Detective Russo had eventually backed off. His investigation into Marcus's death officially closed when the FBI accepted the Calabrese family's version of events. He still drove past the estate sometimes, Lauren noticed. Still watching, still waiting for Adrian to slip up. But Adrian never slipped. Vincent Calabrese had sent a gift for her graduation, an expensive necklace that Adrian immediately had his jeweler check for tracking devices. It was clean, just a peace offering from a man who understood the value of maintaining relationships. Lauren wore it to dinner that night, and Adrian's eyes had darkened when he saw it. You don't have to wear that, he'd said. I know, but it's beautiful and it pisses you off, which makes it even better. He'd laughed, conceding the point. Now, watching Luca blow out candles on her cake with more enthusiasm than accuracy, Lauren felt something she'd stopped believing in years ago. Contentment.
Speech, Luca demanded, clapping his hands. Miss Lauren has to give a speech. I do? It's tradition, Adrian said, fighting a smile. Luca's tradition, but still. Lauren stood, her legs shaky. Public speaking had never been her strength. I'm not good at this, she started, but I just wanted to say thank you to all of you. A year ago, I was hiding from my life. Now I'm living it. And that's because of the people in this room. Her eyes found Adrian's. Because someone saw me when I was trying to be invisible and refused to look away. Because a little boy decided I was family and didn't care that I came with baggage. Because all of you, even you, Sal, stop rolling your eyes, made me feel like maybe I deserved good things. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm going to keep going to school. I'm going to get my degree and help other people find their way out of the dark. And I'm going to do it because you all showed me that the dark doesn't last forever. That survival is just the beginning, not the end. Luca started clapping, and everyone else joined in. Lauren sat down quickly, her face hot, and Adrian's hand found hers under the table. Proud of you, he murmured. I'm proud of me too. That night, after everyone had gone home and Luca was in bed, Adrian led Lauren out to the garden. It was warm, the kind of summer night that made you believe in possibilities. I have something for you, he said. Adrian, you already did too much with the party. It's not from me, technically. He handed her an envelope. It came today. Inside was a letter from the city's main domestic violence shelter, the same organization that had helped Lauren 3 years ago. They were offering her an internship for the fall semester, working directly with survivors, helping them navigate the legal system and rebuild their lives. How did you do this? I made a donation, a substantial one, and I might have mentioned that they had a promising student who'd be perfect for their program. Adrian's expression was carefully neutral, but the decision to offer you the position was theirs. I didn't buy it for you. Just grease the wheels a little? Just grease the wheels. Lauren read the letter again, her hands shaking. This was everything she'd wanted, a chance to give back, to help people the way she'd been helped. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take it. Say you'll keep building this life you're creating. Adrian pulled her close. Say you'll stay. I'm not going anywhere, she said against his chest. You're stuck with me, remember? Best thing that ever happened to me. They stood in the garden as the stars came out, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of broken lives and built something that shouldn't have worked but did. Lauren thought about the woman in the river, about Marcus, about all the violence and fear that had brought her to this moment. It should have destroyed her. By all rights, she should have stayed broken. But she hadn't. She'd survived, and then she'd done something harder than surviving. She'd learned to live again. Not perfectly. Not without scars or nightmares or moments when the past came rushing back. But living nonetheless. And that, she was learning, was enough. 2 years later, Lauren stood in front of a graduating class at the state university, accepting her bachelor's degree in psychology. Adrian and Luca sat in the front row, Luca holding a sign that said, Miss Lauren is the best, in crayon. She'd been accepted to 3 graduate programs and had chosen the one that specialized in trauma counseling. The internship at the shelter had turned into a part-time job, and she now ran support groups for survivors 3 nights a week. Her work was hard, often heartbreaking. She heard stories that reminded her of her own, saw scars that looked like hers, but she also saw hope, saw women who thought they'd never escape find the courage to leave, saw children who'd witnessed violence learn to smile again. She was making a difference, small, incremental, one person at a time, but a difference nonetheless. After the ceremony, Adrian took them all out to dinner at the restaurant where they'd celebrated her first-year grades. Luca was 8 now, all long limbs and endless energy, already talking about becoming a doctor, or a scientist, or maybe a chef. Can I get dessert? He asked, eyeing the menu. You can get whatever you want, Adrian said. It's a special day. It's Miss Lauren's special day, which makes it ours too. Lauren watched them, these 2 people who'd become her family in the most unexpected way, and felt her throat tighten with emotion. You okay? Adrian asked, noticing. Yeah, just happy. It's still weird sometimes. Being happy? Being allowed to be happy, like I'm waiting for permission that I finally realized I don't need. Adrian took her hand across the table. In the past 2 years, they'd gotten more comfortable with public displays of affection. The staff at the estate no longer blinked when they walked into a room holding hands. Luca took it as completely normal.
The only person who still seemed bothered by it was Detective Russo, who'd made one last attempt to convince Lauren she was making a mistake before finally accepting defeat. Some battles aren't worth fighting, he'd said during their last conversation 6 months ago. Just be careful, Miss Hayes. Men like Adrian Moretti don't change who they are just because they fall in love. He was right about that. Adrian was still dangerous, still connected to a world of violence and crime that Lauren only saw the edges of. But he'd also been right about something else. Caring about someone didn't make you weaker. It made you fight harder to be better. Adrian had started funneling money into legitimate businesses, slowly shifting away from the operations that kept cops like Russo interested. He'd never be completely clean, but he was trying, for Luca, for her, for himself. After dinner, they walked through the city, Luca between them, holding both their hands. They passed the park where Lauren used to take him, the library where she'd first really talked to Adrian, the streets she'd walked 1,000 times while trying to figure out who she was. Miss Lauren? Luca asked suddenly. Are you and Daddy going to get married? Lauren nearly tripped over her own feet. Adrian caught her, steadying her with a hand on her elbow. Where did that come from? Adrian asked. Billy at school said people who love each other get married, and you guys love each other, right? Out of the mouths of children. Again. Lauren looked at Adrian, found him looking back with an expression she couldn't quite read. Yes, he said quietly. We do. So are you going to get married? Would you want us to? Lauren asked. Luca thought about it with the seriousness only an 8-year-old could manage. I think so. Then Miss Lauren would really be my family, like officially.
She's already your family, buddy. Marriage doesn't change that. But it would make her my mom, kind of, right? Lauren's breath caught. They'd never talked about that, never put that label on their relationship. She was Luca's nanny, his caretaker, someone he loved. But Mom? If that's what you wanted, she said carefully, if that would make you happy, it would. Luca said it with absolute certainty. Because you take care of me like a mom, and you make Daddy happy, and you're already here all the time anyway, so you should just be my mom for real. Adrian's hand tightened in hers. We'll talk about it, he said. But Luca, whatever happens, whatever we call each other, nothing changes how much we all love each other, okay? Okay? Satisfied, Luca went back to skipping ahead of them, leaving the two adults to process what had just happened. Well, Adrian said after a moment, that was subtle. He's your son. Subtle isn't in his DNA. Lauren was still processing, her heart racing. Did he just propose on your behalf? I think he did. And? Adrian stopped walking, turning to face her fully. And I wasn't planning to do this tonight. I was going to wait until you finished grad school, until the time was right, until I had some romantic setting planned out. But that kid is smarter than both of us combined. And he's right. You're already family. You have been for 2 years. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box that made Lauren's heart stop. I've been carrying this around for 3 months, waiting for the perfect moment, but I'm starting to think there's no such thing as perfect. There's just this, us. Right now. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple and beautiful, a single diamond that caught the streetlight. Lauren Hayes or Emma Clark or whoever you want to be, marry me. Not because Luca asked, not because it makes sense logically. Marry me because I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice when you decided to stay. Lauren looked at the ring, at Adrian, at Luca, who'd stopped ahead of them and was watching with poorly concealed excitement. 2 years ago, she would have said no. Would have run from commitment, from promises, from anything that looked like forever. Because forever with Marcus had been a prison. But this wasn't Marcus. This was Adrian, who'd killed for her and fought for her, and somehow managed to see past all her walls to the person she was trying to become. This was Luca, who decided she was family before she'd decided it herself. This was the life she'd built from nothing, from broken pieces and bad decisions, and the stubborn refusal to stay a victim. Yes, she said, and watched Adrian's face transform with relief and joy. Yes, I'll marry you. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, because of course it did. Adrian was nothing if not thorough. Luca whooped and ran back to them, crashing into their legs hard enough to nearly knock them over. Does this mean you're getting married? It means we're getting married, Lauren confirmed, laughing through tears she hadn't realized she was crying. Can I be the ring bearer? You can be whatever you want, buddy. They walked home through the summer evening, the three of them, and Lauren felt something settle in her chest. Not the absence of fear. She'd learned that fear never fully left, just became manageable. But the presence of something stronger. Hope. Love. The audacious belief that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this happiness she'd stumbled into. They got married in the garden 6 months later. A small ceremony with just close friends and family. Luca did serve as ring bearer, taking his role so seriously that he practiced walking down the aisle for weeks beforehand. Lauren wore a dress that showed her scars. Not all of them. Some things stayed private, but enough that anyone looking would know she carried her history on her skin. Adrian had offered to pay for treatments, laser removal, anything she wanted. She'd declined. The scars were part of her story, and she was done being ashamed of her story. Detective Russo showed up uninvited, standing at the back of the garden in his off-duty clothes. He didn't say anything, just watched the ceremony with an expression Lauren couldn't read. Afterward, as she and Adrian greeted guests, Russo approached. "Congratulations," he said, and he almost sounded like he meant it. "Thank you, Detective." "I still think you're making a mistake, but..." He glanced at Adrian, who was watching them with barely concealed hostility. "I hope I'm wrong." "You are," Lauren said quietly, "but I appreciate the concern." He left without saying anything else, and Lauren watched him go with something like pity. Russo saw the world in black and white, good and evil, legal and illegal. He couldn't understand that sometimes the best things in life existed in the gray spaces in between. The reception lasted into the evening, music and laughter filling the garden. Lauren danced with Adrian, with Luca, with Sal, who turned out to have surprisingly good rhythm. She ate too much cake and drank champagne and felt lighter than she had in her entire life. Late in the evening, when the guests had thinned and Luca had fallen asleep on a bench, Adrian pulled her aside. "Happy?" he asked. "Deliriously. No regrets? About marrying a man who runs a criminal organization and has definitely committed multiple felonies?" She pretended to think about it. "Not even a little." He laughed, pulling her close. "I love you, Lauren Moretti." The name still felt strange, but in a good way, like trying on a coat that fit better than expected. "I love you too." They swayed to music that had stopped playing, wrapped up in each other while the stars came out overhead. Somewhere in the house, Luca was dreaming. Somewhere in the city, Lauren's work waited. More survivors to help, more lives to rebuild. But right now, in this moment, she was exactly where she needed to be. Years later, when Lauren ran her own therapy practice specializing in trauma recovery, when Luca was in college studying to be a social worker because of her influence, when Adrian had legitimized enough of his business to almost pass for respectable, she would look back on this night as the moment everything crystallized. Not the moment she survived, not the moment she escaped, but the moment she finally, completely, became free. Because freedom wasn't the absence of scars. It was the choice to build a life despite them. It was loving and being loved, not in spite of your brokenness, but with full knowledge of it. It was looking at your past without flinching and your future without fear. It was standing in a garden with a man who'd seen you at your worst and chosen you anyway, with a child who called you mom even though he didn't have to, with a life you'd built from nothing but determination and hope. That was freedom. Not perfect, not painless, but real. And in the end, real was all that mattered.